Now that I am out of the restaurant, let's chat a bit about some tips for traveling in China. At the end of the last video, I had a bowl of Yangtze泡馍. That bowl of泡馍, it had cost 30 Chinese yuan, which is about $4 and 20 cents. So, it's both pricey and not pricey, you know what I mean. The thing is, the flavor was pretty meh, and there wasn't much lamb in there. Based on the local prices in this city, it's definitely on the higher side, making it seem expensive. But considering its location, the price is somewhat reasonable. And here's the thing about China, tourist traps are real. If you're spending money near tourist spots, expect to pay double or more. It's a common thing. I just came down from the hotel, and there are plenty of hotels around here. Many tourists stay in this area, so the restaurants nearby aren't catering to locals, they're here to milk the tourists for all they've got. This phenomenon of ripping off customers is very common in many cities. To put it bluntly, this is also an economic issue. Have you noticed the small vendors selling by the roadside? This kind of casual roadside vending is not allowed in big cities. In major cities, you either need to have your own storefront, or you can only vend for free in specific areas designated by the government. This is essentially a tug-of-war between economic development and the cleanliness of the city. In smaller cities, to promote economic growth, these situations that don't strictly adhere to regulations are allowed to happen. The topic has gone a bit far, let's go back to travel tips. If you're not sweating the budget, then no worries. But if you are, I've got some advice for you. When it comes to eating, ask the hotel owner or staff where they eat normally. But chances are, it'll be a bit of a hike. If you're not fussed about the dine-in experience, here's a second tip that's more convenient and saves you money: online food ordering and delivery. Online food delivery services are very developed in China. Since competition is fierce, you can usually get food at a good enough price. Because lots of merchants don't even have a storefront, they're just a kitchen pumping out food, and delivery guys from platforms like Elle.me and Meituan bring it straight to you. Download those two apps, they're the big dogs in China. You'll find more variety and the prices are reasonable. After a long day out, feeling beat, just kick back at the hotel and order in. Less than 20 minutes later, you've got your meal. It's a solid experience, trust me. Give it a shot. Of course, if you've got a fat budget and you're down to drop $100 for a top-notch meal in a fancy restaurant, then forget everything I just said. Another issue you'll encounter is transportation costs. It's pretty common, like, if you take a taxi from the airport, you're gonna end up paying 2 to 3 times the usual city rate. So, how do you deal with that? Well, in most big cities, you've got government-run subways, and they're usually dirt cheap. If you're arriving late and the subway's shut down, the airport usually has special shuttle buses to downtown. Once you're downtown, you can grab a cab from there. Here's another thing: Google's been out of the China for years now, so forget about using Google Maps. You'll need to download an app like Amap, Baidu Maps, or Tencent Maps. These apps usually come with taxi-hailing services built in, kind of like Uber. That will easy for you. Now, you might be wondering why these issues persist in China. Well, some cities don't have these problems at all. The more developed the city, the fewer these issues you'll face. It all depends on the guts and determination of the local government, as well as the power of social media. Let me tell you a real story from a few years back. At Xi'an Airport, if you had a connecting flight, they'd provide free hotel service. But there were plenty of hotels near the airport that would pretend to be airport staff and drag you off to their hotel, charging you a pretty penny to stay there. One YouTuber blew the lid off this scam. The local government promised to fix it. But when that YouTuber returned to Xi'an Airport some time later, nothing had changed. Even worse, airport staff turned a blind eye to the scam, knowingly allowing travelers to be ripped off. Because in China, there's a saying: cutting off someone's money is like killing their parents. Airport staff didn't want trouble, and the local government didn't want to mess with a lucrative industry, so they just swept it under the rug. Plus, that blogger's flight information got leaked. The hotel staff who scammed travelers knew he was coming. So, they didn't treat him like a regular tourist, and their scamming process would have been exposed online again. So, that honest and outraged YouTuber decided to take the train to Xi'an and then head to the airport, checking if the scam was still happening. And you know what? The government's promises weren't worth squat. Those shady hotels near the airport were still scamming people. Then, that YouTuber exposed them again. Thanks to the uproar on social media, government officials admitted they dropped the ball and promised to fix things. Finally, when that YouTuber went to Xi'an airport one last time, those illegal hotels were shut down, and the scamming finally stopped. In recent years, China has seen a rise in video content creator of this type. They travel all over China, exposing businesses that cheat and overcharge customers, gaining a lot of views online and earning decent incomes. Faced with public pressure, local governments usually engage in crisis PR after such incidents, starting to fulfill their responsibilities to solve the problem. I reckon many places around the world have similar issues. It depends on how the local— Oh, and I suddenly thought about the hotel issue. Not every hotel in China allows foreigners to stay. This is because the hotel industry in China requires a license. Regular licenses only allow them to accommodate Chinese nationals, while higher-level licenses allow them to host foreigners. Some hotels think they hardly receive any foreign guests in a year, so they only apply for a regular license. Typically, larger-scale hotels don't have this issue. So, if you're traveling to China and your budget is limited, and you choose a smaller hotel, you'll need to find out if they can accommodate foreigners. Moreover, most Chinese people do not speak English, especially in small cities. This poses a significant challenge for tourists visiting China. Often, you have to rely on translation software to communicate with the Chinese people. However, this issue is obviously much easier to resolve in large cities. Moreover, I have heard that the Chinese government has introduced various visa-free policies, which is a huge boon for short-term tourists visiting China. If you're planning to travel to China, you can check out my videos for some ideas. Well, those are the 2 points I can think of for now. If you have any questions about traveling in China, feel free to leave a message, and based on my experiences, I'll do my best to give you a satisfactory answer. If you have watched my last video, you should know that I am in Langzhou, China. And now, I have arrived at the bank of the Yellow River. The Yellow River is the mother river of the Chinese people and the birthplace of Chinese civilization. Every Chinese person has a special feeling towards the Yellow River, which is similar to the Nile River in Egypt and the Ganges River in India. The bridge I'm walking on now is called Zhongshan Bridge. If you have a basic understanding of Chinese culture, you should know that most ancient bridges in China were stone bridges with arched structures, and this iron bridge is obviously not one of them. This iron bridge over the Yellow River was built during the Qing dynasty, more than 100 years ago. It was originally constructed by Germans and has been reinforced 3 times, yet it still stands firmly today. Although it's already 5 o'clock in the afternoon, the sky is still bright, and there are a lot of people walking on the bridge. Please join me as we cross this iron bridge to the other side of the Yellow River. Let me show you the side of this iron bridge. The bridge is approximately 200 meters long. However, as you can see, since this bridge is an antique from over 100 years ago, the government does not allow vehicles to pass through. Therefore, as you can see, only pedestrians are allowed on this bridge. I'm not sure if it's because it's the weekend today, but there seem to be a particularly large number of people on this bridge. Or maybe this bridge is always this busy, and it has become a part of the daily life of this city. I'm glad we walked across this bridge together. Next, I will walk through the overhead bridge before reaching my destination. Let me show you the bustling traffic underneath the overhead bridge. Alright, please focus your attention on the lush green mountains before us. This is our destination today, the White Pagoda Mountain. Do you remember in my last video, when we visited the museum and saw a white pagoda in the Buddhist Culture Exhibition Hall? That's right, the prototype of that pagoda is located on this mountain. Let's see if we can find it. The surrounding area is filled with the traditional style of ancient Chinese architecture. Let's walk along this pedestrian path. Looks like I'm having good luck today. I can see a signboard ahead. Alright, it's a tour map. There seem to be several different routes to choose from. However, the sun is setting soon, and I'm not sure if this place is open at night. So, I don't have much time. I probably won't be able to explore all the routes. According to our original plan, let's try to find that white pagoda and then head down the mountain. Walking to the other side of the bridge, I realized that the scenery was indeed beautiful. To my left, there were vibrant green mountains, and to my right, the tall buildings of the city. This iron bridge, with a history of over 100 years, connects the two. This less developed western city has been quietly progressing in recent years. I guess most of you watching this video probably didn't even know this city existed in China. Let's turn around. This should be the main gate of the mountain. Inside is the path leading up the mountain. This kind of structure in China is called a paifang, which is similar to sculptures in Western countries used to commemorate a historical event. As the entrance to the mountain, it was built 100 years ago to commemorate the successful completion of the bridge. Continue walking forward and climb up the layers of stairs. Let's go together to find the legendary White Pagoda. As I walked halfway up the mountain, I came across a weedy reservoir. Since it hadn't rained, the pond was relatively dry. After a brief rest, I continued my climb. Soon, I arrived at another paifang. There were also many tourists here, because from this vantage point, you can overlook the absolutely beautiful scenery of the city. However, the worst thing is that as I walked further uphill, there were fewer and fewer people. The last thing I wanted to happen did happen, I got lost. Since I didn't encounter any other people on the way, I started to doubt whether I had taken the wrong path. However, it seemed like there was only this one road leading uphill nearby, so I had to brace myself and continue on. I can show you how dense this mountain is. The closely packed trees almost blocked my view, but instead of feeling afraid, I felt a sense of excitement. Fortunately, as I continued to walk forward, I suddenly came across a vast open space. Standing on it, I could once again see the scenery of the city across the river, which gave me immense confidence. After collecting my thoughts, I continued walking along the path and finally came across a stretch of wall. With sweat pouring down my face, I knew that this was the outer wall of the temple, and I had arrived at the location of the White Pagoda. Peering through the small gate, I could see a dense crowd inside the temple. It seemed like there must be another more accessible main road leading to this temple. Fortunately, even though I chose to take the less traveled path, after enjoying the breathtaking scenery, I was still able to arrive here in the end. As you can see, atop the stairs is our destination for this adventure, the White Pagoda. You can probably see that the base of this tower is round, like an upside-down bowl. This is reminiscent of the style of ancient Indian tombs and is also a characteristic of Tibetan Buddhism. And when you look up, you'll notice that the upper part of the structure resembles a traditional Chinese pagoda, which is a characteristic of Han Chinese Buddhism. Let's walk around this pagoda and admire its beauty once again. You may be wondering why this pagoda exhibits two distinct architectural styles simultaneously. If you've watched my previous video, you'll know that Lanzhou is an important city located halfway along the Silk Road. It not only embraces the culture from the central plains of China, but is also influenced by the culture from the west. Lanzhou has always been a city of cultural blending, therefore, it is quite reasonable for a single pagoda to exhibit two different styles simultaneously, and this is probably one of the reasons why this pagoda has become a scenic spot. Descending the stairs, we arrive at a spacious open area surrounded by wooden railings, providing a resting place for travelers. Let's sit here and admire the White Pagoda for the last time, sparkling in the setting sun. In the courtyard, there is a group of white pigeons and several dogs. They seem to have become accustomed to the presence of humans. The puppies are lying lazily on the ground, while the pigeons are freely wandering around. As I chased them, they didn't fly away. When I looked up, I saw some of them flying on the rooftops. I checked my watch and it was already 6 p.m., with sunset approaching. Since I had achieved my goal of reaching the White Pagoda, it was time to descend the mountain. However, as an adventurer, I naturally wouldn't choose the same path I took to climb up. Instead, I decided to take a different trail down the mountain. It seems that many elderly people share the same idea as me on this path. They are holding their phones and capturing the beautiful sunset. I didn't linger for too long, as I believed that even more beautiful scenery awaited me ahead. To my surprise, there were still tourists heading up the mountain at this hour. Later, someone informed me that the mountain remains open to visitors even at night. Therefore, some tourists choose to ascend the mountain at this time, waiting for the arrival of nightfall to enjoy the scenic night view across the river. As I walked down the mountain, the sun in the distance was almost invisible, leaving only a remnant glow on the far-off hills. Nevertheless, the dazzling radiance still filled the sky, painting the clouds in a layer of orange hue. When I saw that small pavilion, I knew I was almost back down the mountain. As I enthusiastically climbed the mountain earlier, I had passed through this area. Now, my mood has calmed down considerably. After achieving my set goal, my body seems to have become lighter as well. Continuing forward, I was surrounded by lush forests. After traversing through the jungle, I once again caught sight of the Yellow River and the tall buildings across the river. Although I had already seen it countless times during my ascent and descent, each view still left me in awe, marveling at its grandeur and vastness. Originally planning to continue descending the mountain, I suddenly changed my mind. I decided to climb to a higher point to once again admire the beautiful scenery of the city. After almost exhausting all my energy during the climb, I now feel somewhat lethargic as I ascend these stairs. Crawling at a snail's pace, I still manage to slowly make my way up. Wow! Although I often made wrong decisions during the climbing process today, choosing to come here was definitely the right decision. There are quite a few people here, so I'll move to a different spot. This is truly the most beautiful scenery today. Alright, after enjoying this beautiful view, I'll start descending the mountain now. It was a pleasure hiking with you all today. If you find my channel interesting, please consider subscribing as it's a great encouragement for me. Lastly, make sure to watch until the end of the video, as there's a stunning sunset waiting for you. Goodbye.